Hey, everybody, and welcome to Fandom Empire Presents Flix Busters, the podcast that will generally discuss whether a film is a flick or a bust, and we put it to a very comprehensive voting and grading process. But this episode is going to be just a little bit different, partially because of scheduling conflicts and partially because we're just so damn excited about this upcoming series, Star Wars Ahsoka. I'm Zach, back as always to be a part of the Flix Busters team, and Sean is back with me as well, and we've got some friends joining us on the pod as well. We'll kind of go around the horn and say hi to everybody, but first and foremost, Sean, you and I have known each other about as long as Ahsoka Tano as a character has been in existence. What do you make of the evolution of her character from the time that you met me and the first time that we met her up until now?
So I think the mass general public didn't like Ahsoka in the early days with the Clone Wars movie and maybe the first season or two of the Clone Wars. I don't think I ever really fell into that category. If anything, she reminded me a little bit of like young Anakin from Phantom Menace, which I never had a problem with. I know a lot of people do, but the character's journey, I mean, it's honestly, it's so steeped with lore compared to so many other Star Wars characters. And it takes so many like massive turns just when you think you know what's coming. It takes another turn on you. She's also appeared in so much different Star Wars media. Obviously started with the Clone Wars movie. We moved to the Clone Wars TV show, Star Wars Rebels, Forces of Destiny, Tales of the Jedi, Mandalorian Season 2, and now her own limited, well, maybe not limited, TV series. I would say that this character, when you consider that George and Dave created her post Revenge of the Sith, has been honestly, when you look at where the character is today, is there any other character that wasn't already created before then that has had the level of success and sustainability that Ahsoka has? And I don't know if you can say there has been.
Well, I also don't know exactly. I guess you're referring to like the sequel trilogy and Rogue One type of characters and the impact that they may have had in their films or something like that.
There was Star Wars like Resistance that came out, Star Wars Rebels, Kanan, etc. Obviously, Hera's popping back up in this. Sabine is getting glowing reviews. Obviously, no spoilers here on this show, but I just think when you look at what Ahsoka's been able to accomplish over all these years, whether it be Ashley Eckstein voicing her to begin with, or now you have, help me out here, the actress's name slipping my mind.
Rosario Dawson,
Daredevil, and so many other things. I don't think I understood what this character meant to me as a Star Wars fan until those first few shots of Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 5. It was extremely emotional.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna pose some similar thoughts and some similar questions to the other folks that have kindly graced us with their presence on this pod. It's always fun having guests on, and a stalwart of the channel doesn't quite look like Rapunzel anymore. The locks got cut. But Tommy, T. Brad, what are you going by these days? Welcome back.
Thanks, buddy. Tommy, of course, as always.
Hey, I never assume with the username. It's very fancy.
Yeah.
But thoughts on Ahsoka from when she was first introduced in 2008, and how has that evolved and affected how you perceive her character today?
So I want to sidestep real quick and just ask you guys, did you guys see this movie in theaters? The Clone Wars movie, the original movie when it came out?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I did.
See,
I did.
I did too.
That
that movie. I'm not. I am not somebody who hates that movie. It's not as good as, the original 6 by any means, but I do enjoy it. And I did see it in theaters, not like release night or anything like that, but I enjoyed it. Now, Ahsoka Tano was not my favorite character from the time of launch, but I didn't dislike her. I went to go see this movie like a lot of people for your Anakin, for your Obi-Wan, and for, your other characters. Ahsoka was that other character to the side. It's like, well, maybe they'll do something with her. Maybe she'll be interesting. My interest is there. And here she comes. And they present her as, I really like what Sean said, someone who's a little like Anakin and, worked well, did the Padawan role very well for him. And I didn't realize how much she was disliked until years later when that opinion was probably no longer valid. It was surprising for me. Again, I'm not saying she was my favorite at that point, but I certainly did not dislike her. It's just she was there. She was there like another Jedi, like insert Jedi who most people probably don't care about here. Kit Fisto. I mean, I've always thought he looks cool, but a lot of people didn't like the guy. So,
well, he's great in the water, but apparently he's shit against fighting Sith Lords. So
yeah,
just have him fight his battles in the water.
Lasted one strike longer than the other two did.
Barely. And then I swear, one of the worst podcasting experiences I ever had was in the very early days of the IPC podcast. We had only been going for a few months, less than a year, and we wanted to have something unique, something special that incorporated the fans. And so during our barbecue segment, we always talk about food at the end of the show. During our barbecue segment at the end, we were taking Skype calls from people asking them what their favorite barbecue is. And the problem with not having a producer and not being able to screen the calls because we were so damn new was we just took anybody that called us, and this one mother effer got on during our barbecue segment and went on like a 5-minute long tangent about the 10-year-old theory that Kit Fisto isn't dead because you don't see his corpse when Windu and Sidious are fighting. And I'm just dumbfounded trying to figure out how to cut this person off because it had nothing to do with barbecue. It was driving me nuts. So we're going to do our best to stay on topic tonight. And Randy, I'm going to throw the same question to you that I threw to the other two guys. How did you originally view Ahsoka, and how do you view her now?
I think for me, the thing is that when I first saw her, I didn't understand the dynamic of what they were really going for, because at the time, especially with the movie, I was just like, okay, very kiddie. I'm here for the characters that I know. And I said last week, I told these guys that I actually hadn't fallen asleep. The only Star Wars movie I've ever fallen asleep during in the theater.
Ooh.
Yeah. But as I got into the Clone Wars and I understood like the dynamic of Anakin and Ahsoka and how they really meshed up well, but I also enjoyed the fact that they bucked the norm and gave a Jedi Knight a Padawan rather than just a Master, which I thought was really cool, something different. And that kind of really drew me to those two characters even more because it was just something different that I'd never seen before. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as the seasons have gone on, and obviously when we got season 7 and then in Rebels and things like that, the character's grown on me a lot. Like I'm to the point now where if I actually witnessed something bad happen to her, I probably would be in a very foul mood for a while. Obviously when the thing started, not so much, but now I've grown attached enough to the character at that because the story is there. The story is amazing, whether it's Tales of the Jedi or Rebels, her part in Rebels, and especially in Clone Wars, especially season 7, because season 7 I felt like was definitely the coup de grace for Clone Wars in the sense of just the overall emotion and the powerfulness of everything that was incorporated into that story. Yeah, it's definitely night and day from what I started to where I am now with her.
Well, and I think to Sean's point that like the type of evolution that she has gotten since 2008 is probably more evolution than just about anybody else in that same time frame, which I think is a testament to just how invested Lucasfilm is in having her character's presence and I wouldn't say legacy to a certain extent. She has built something that a lot of people probably wish other characters had built. And I think there's still a very small percentage that is kind of upset that she's the one that's gotten that depth instead of somebody else. But I don't think anybody from that camp is on the show tonight. So we're not going to give too much credence or attention to that. But we do have some folks in the chat already here tuning in live. Thanks for being a part of the show, y'all. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Talking Star Wars already with a fun referenced episode 3, and Jesse says, I've always loved the character of Ahsoka. It just took some of the shows to catch up to her level of awesomeness. And then actually he says he got to experience an early screening few months early. I did see it in theaters. I did not care for it in theaters. In fact, if you dig into the depths and the bowels of Facebook back in the day when you could review stuff, when you could review pages, I gave a pretty scathing review of the Clone Wars movie, saying something to the effect of, cartoon characters just aren't doing it for me. It doesn't have the impact of a real lightsaber battle. It's just a bunch of spinning lights and grunting noises or something like that. Like, I went hard on that because it didn't do it for me back in that time. But I think if I gave it another shot now, I could find the silver linings among the clouds. I just think rescuing Jabba the Hutt's son was kind of a weird plot, and some of the banter could have been cleaned up a little bit. I don't know if I really cared for Anakin calling her Snips and her calling him Sky Guy. Like, all of that just felt really out of place to me at the time. The thing that stood out to me the most, though, was her fighting style. The way that she went into battle and carried herself and carried her lightsaber. That was what was different. And as the show progressed, she developed a different style, and she fought with 2 sabers towards the end, and I think she still does. So it's kind of been interesting to see that not only has she evolved in her character, but so has her fighting style, so has the way that she chooses what battles to fight. In The Mandalorian, she's choosing a very noble battle to fight, but then in Book of Boba Fett, she's not fighting at all. She's kind of in a mentoring role. And so the growth of her character, I think, is the thing that has really impressed me. And I look forward to seeing how it continues to grow, because there's a lot of unanswered stuff that came out of the Rebels series, a lot of questions about where certain characters are and where they're headed, and if some or others are still alive. And we'll get to that in a little bit when we do our series preview. But the trailers and the clips that we have seen so far, they look pretty impressive. And so I'm looking forward to that discussion in just a little bit here. But one of the main segments of tonight's episode is going to be almost a medal ceremony for our favorite Ahsoka Tano moments. These can be from the Clone Wars. These can be from Rebels. They can be from the live action series that she's been a part of, Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, however y'all want to spin it. But because we've got so many guests on the program, we're only going to do a podium instead of a top 10 or a top 5. Going to try to keep it as simplistic and straightforward as we can. So we'll go bronze medal around the horn, silver medal around the horn, and then we'll top it off with what is our Ahsoka Tano gold medal moment. Sean, we're going clockwise, so you are up, sir. Your bronze medal moment for Ahsoka Tano.
For me, it's leaving the Jedi Order. I think that moment is so powerful and integral, and like she gets it. Like, say what you want, defend the Jedi. They weren't doing things right at the end. They weren't, and she understood that. She found out the hard way how much or how far the Jedi had fallen as a group. So to stand up to the Jedi and the Chancellor and even Tarkin at that time was just such a huge moment, and be able to walk away from Anakin there at that time. Like, let's not forget that that's technically our first ending of the Clone Wars was that.
Big pivotal moment. And I love the interview that took place with Filoni afterwards, talking about how instead of doing Iris Out and the really big credits and whatnot, they finally had a moment that justified fading to black with very somber music. And so the fact that they even went to that much detail with that moment definitely makes it noteworthy. And I feel like it will not be the last time it gets mentioned. Tommy, your bronze medal Ahsoka moment.
Well, believe it or not, Zach, mine was the exact same as Sean's. I'm really thinking it over very hard, leading up to this show. And I even went back, rewatched the scene. It still maintains this real sense of power to me. And in my very slow rewatch of the Clone Wars, which I never finished before Ahsoka premiere, let alone Rebels, right? I'm actually on season 5 now, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure it's still going to have power for me when I get to it. And we could say it's just writing, it's in hindsight, plot armor, whatever. Sean's speaking the truth there. We can really definitely see Ahsoka, she's got it. She saw what happened, how they treated her, how situations were being addressed. The Jedi had lost their way. The Council they veered off the path they were claiming to follow. And we could spend a whole nother show another time talking about other situations where this was the case. Ahsoka's departure from the Order is just one clear example that the Clone Wars, it underlined and it highlighted in the brightest color possible.
Very well spoken. Very well spoken. Chosen Nightwolf, I believe that's George, says, really looking forward to the Ahsoka series premiere tomorrow. They're going to be doing it a little bit differently than they've done with other series. And I noticed this, Sean, with House of the Dragon over on HBO. They had it in an evening time release slot, but I think it's because they were also airing it on the actual HBO channel at the same time. This is probably one of the few instances where a streamer is uploading something not at midnight and not in conjunction with another station. I'm curious to see how that plays out.
It sounds like Disney is leading this way for a lot of their bigger stuff moving forward, and frankly, I think it's a good idea. The West Coast people can react at midnight, but for the rest of us, it's anywhere from 3 to 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. And it's just like you're not going to get any social media traction at those times.
Yeah.
PM, for the UK people, it's 2 a.m. I'm not expecting them to stay up for it, but you will literally, if it's good or if it's bad, you will have all of North America talking about it because it's being released at a reasonable time. And frankly, this just seems like something that should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm with you. Continuing with the bronze medal podium, Randy, you are up. What is your bronze medal Ahsoka moment?
Now, I'm not saying that the moment other two have mentioned isn't on my list. It's just a little higher. I am actually going to go with, for me, and I hate to not to ruin it, but so much, but season 7 of Clone Wars, Ahsoka versus Darth Maul, or Maul at this point. it showcased her style and how much she's grown as a lightsaber duelist, and how strong she was with her convictions and her ideals, and of how much she believed in Anakin still. And the fact that Maul was, and the sad part is everything Maul was saying was true, but because of her loyalty to Anakin, she just didn't want to see it. And I felt like him tempting her, trying to bring her to his side, that stuff really just kind of resonated with things we've seen in the past, but it was done so well. And the action and the music combined in all of that really emphasized just how big of a moment it really was.
So I agree with you. The moment is huge, not just for Ahsoka's character, but just for the story, the plot of Order 66. Like, all of it has huge implications. It did not make my list. It's probably going to surprise a few people. Mostly because I feel like I was gearing it towards stuff that was predominantly about Ahsoka's character rather than like an exchange between two characters. So it's all just a matter of interpretation, how we came up with what we came up with. No right or wrong answer, but my bronze medal is going to come from the end of season 3, actually. The 2-part series where she gets kidnapped and hunted by the Trandoshans. It's the first time that they get kind of a animation upgrade from the character Ganak that we see in season 1. They're a lot more intimidating now. They have a lot more presence. And to have her alone with just a few other Padawan survivors that are trying to just survive rather than find a way off or to win, the way that she inspires them, the way that she assumes leadership, the way that she comforts and cares for them and those that are around her. She cares for Chewbacca when he ends up in this game, and it made a really fun connection to the original trilogy, but also felt fairly natural. And she had to win and fight and inspire and lead without her master, without her clone army, without her lightsaber. She had a lot of odds stacked against her. And I think it was a place where she experienced a lot of personal growth. And it's an underrated character arc for her, in my opinion. But I think it's a crucial one that helps shape who she becomes, learning how to be self-sufficient without having to rely on the Jedi, without having to rely on the clones. In this situation, she had to rely on herself and the Force. And in that instance, that was enough. Okay, we're going to move on to the silver medal now as we go around the horn. If you all in the chat have a top 3 that you want to send, please go ahead and start typing them up and send them to us. We're going to highlight them before we go on to our discussion previewing the live-action Ahsoka series. So if you have favorite moments of Ahsoka Tano, or if you have a top 3 that you want to submit, please go ahead and send that in. Talking Star Wars, I see your question. We will get to it when we actually end up talking about the series, but that is a good question, one that is worth discussing. But for now, we're on to our silver medals. Sean, you're up.
Not to make this anticlimactic or anything, but my silver medal is the Ahsoka Maul battle. I thought far and away it's the best lightsaber duel animation we get. That's also because they actually recorded them doing it with all the, what's that thing they do for the video game, the motion capture. Had Ray Park do it with I forget who the other person was now. It was not Ashley Eckstein, no, to my knowledge. And it just looked fantastic. It was far and away the best they've had yet. And to Zach's earlier point in the episode, that always really, like, I had a really hard time with lightsaber stuff in animation projects. Like, I just think it looks way better in live action, and it's just such an important part of Star Wars that it's like you really have to, let a lot slide to be okay with it. But yeah, it's the Ahsoka Maul battle, man, leading into the Order 66 execution. Hate to be anticlimactic, but like we know Randy's going to have that other one come back up, so that's just where it is.
Alrighty, Tommy, you're up. Silver medal.
Yeah, absolutely. So this might see a bit of a vanilla answer, but I put, gosh, what is that, season 3 of Rebels? I believe the episode title was Twilight of the Apprentice, where she is facing Vader. And, especially at the moment, I won't leave you, not this time. To which he responds, then you will die. I feel like that moment in itself, when you do a watch through of Rebels, you build up to it, but it never has the same level of power as it did the first time. Every time I go through the show, every time I rewatch the scene, I'm looking to rediscover what I felt the very first time. The goosebumps, the cringe. It's like a craving, but regardless of these feelings I seek from the moment that I again recognize as my silver, it's up there. I view it as extremely pivotal for her character, and one that, as we later see, has consequences that extend in ways beyond that moment for the plot.
I don't view that as a vanilla answer at all. I think all of the explanation that you gave is completely justified. So I think that's a great silver medal. Randy, what is yours?
So for me, my silver medal is Ahsoka leaving the Order. Obviously, I won't retread on some of the things you guys said, because like the music, the way the feelings you got watching her walk away. But one of the things I do want to touch on is like this is also gives you that idea, because you only hear about it really like a little bit in the prequel movies, but this really gave you a sense of showing the fear that's starting to creep into the Jedi Order, the dark side really starting to shape some of the events. And this moment really brought it more out into the forefront, saying, okay, now I kind of understand some of the things I saw in the movies, and now they're giving me this explanation and showing you what a strong person, like who understands exactly what's happening and is just willing to walk away from it all because they know they need to do what's right. And I can't really add much more onto it other than that.
It's my turn now to piggyback and echo off of other people, because my silver medal is also her leaving the Order. It's such a crucial part of who she is. Everything that we're going to be getting from this series, everything that we got from her in Mandalorian, everything that we got in Book of Boba Fett, everything that we got in season 7 that includes the Maul battle, everything that we see from her in Rebels, it's all hinging on this decision to leave the Order. And it's such a big part of the big question mark that everybody had when her character was first introduced. It was always, oh, is she going to die during the war? Is she gonna defect and become a Darksider? Is she going to be off on some rescue mission and she's just killed off screen during Order 66? And the fun thing is the answer is none of it. I don't think I really envisioned the possibility of a Jedi walking away from the Order. I know Count Dooku did it. I know a few others have done it, but I never envisioned that actually being something that they brought to life, that they brought to the screen. And when that season finale faded to black, I lost it. And that's when it solidified for me that she is one of my favorite characters, was seeing that favorite character make Such a ballsy decision. Also, Danny Dukes, salute. Good to see you in the chat. Thanks for being a part of tonight. To not only see her choose to walk away from a life that is pretty much the only one she's known, but to also have the mirror reflection of what somebody chooses to do when they notice corruption. One of her best friends in the Order, Barris, saw the corruption and committed acts of treason as a way of trying to stop it. Committed acts of sabotage, of terrorism to a certain extent. And that was her way of making a statement to the Jedi, to the Republic, letting them know that something is wrong. And then you have the flip side. You see Ahsoka, and she recognizes the problems within. She recognizes that the Jedi aren't who they say they are. They aren't who they believe themselves to be. And rather than fight, she chooses to walk away. It is such an incredibly mature thing to do, but also so incredibly scary to walk away from basically everything you've ever known. And it's a powerful moment that shapes who she is, and it shapes the future of Star Wars programming now that we're seeing the aftermath of it. So it is a really huge moment in Star Wars, and it is a really big moment for her personally, but it is not my gold medal, and it's not a lot of people's gold medal. I'm kind of surprised that it's only pegging the silver, but we'll see how this final round shapes up. We are to the top of the podium now. Our gold medal favorite Ahsoka Tano moments, and Sean, you get to dish out the first gold.
So for me, I honestly, I tipped my hand earlier on what it was, and that is the live action debut of Ahsoka. No, I'm not going to say the entire episode. That's a bit much. But that opening sequence before we get the Mando opening title card with her in the woods there, and it feels like something almost out of a horror movie at times. Almost something like out of Terminator, which is convenient considering Michael Baine's in the episode. But there's just something like special about seeing this animated character make its live action debut, almost as if, hey, not only has this character made it, but there's no more of the, well, this is just a book character, or this is just an animated character, or this is just a video game character. If the character is properly handled and treated properly and is unique enough and entertaining enough and compelling enough, you can see it on your TV or in some people's cases, this just a few days ago on a movie screen. So yeah, there's just something oddly emotional, about seeing her in live action for the first time, ignite those two white lightsabers. And for me, it was emotional because I didn't know it was going to be emotional. I had an idea Luke was going to show up in episode 8 of Mando season 2, and I was emotional during that, but I was prepared for it. For Ahsoka, even though we had an idea she was in the episode, I just found myself overcome with emotion, and it was just a special moment, man.
What's interesting is there were probably a few conflicting reviews on how she looked, particularly because her lekkus seemed particularly short. And what's funny is they look a little bit longer in some of the previews and clips that they have made for this series. So at least Lucasfilm is kind of taking notice of some of the fans' commentary and trying to make the appropriate corrections. But yes, there definitely was something really special about seeing an animated character come to life. And I think that is just a testament of the impact that live action can make. No matter how grand of a spectacle you can make something animated, there's just a little something extra about seeing somebody make that switch. and I'm not knocking on animation. I've loved Clone Wars and Rebels, but I'm with you. There was something special to that. Okay, that is Sean's gold medal Ahsoka moment. Tommy, I believe you're up.
As I'm going forward and presenting my gold moment, I'm realizing that my Ahsoka moments are more drama based. They're not devoid of action, but they're more focused on the emotion. That might not be it for everyone, but that also might speak to why I did not include the Ahsoka versus Maul scene from season 7. It certainly came to mind because that was a great scene. I remember when we were watching them as they were being released, but regardless, my gold medal came down to the Order 66 scene when Ahsoka is beginning to sense in the Force what's going on. Anakin has turned to the dark side. And then she goes to confer with the clones. Rex pulls his pistols on her, tells her to find fives, and he's struggling with his inhibitor chip and begins firing at her. She closes the blast doors on the 2 clones who were facing her, getting ready to either apprehend or kill her. And she's alone with him as other clones attempt to gain entry from the opposing room. That scene is extremely powerful because it really speaks to the dynamic that Ahsoka and Rex have, because Rex is struggling. Yeah. He's a clone, he's a commander, but at the same time, he recognizes Ahsoka as somebody who's very special to him, and she sees it too. I could talk for a while longer, but let's just leave it at this scene has earned my gold medal because as far as the character of Ahsoka goes, I feel that this is a wonderful bridge between her, as a youth in the Clone Wars and, growing up and now being shoved in an even more forceful way possible into that wider role that she eventually becomes with the Ahsoka in Rebels.
It's a very fair point. The relationship between her and Rex goes all the way back to the movie when she tries to just figure out whether she outranks him or not. And I think there's just been a mutual respect between the two of them ever since. And to see that dynamic get played out was definitely super pivotal for the show, super pivotal for both of their characters. It was definitely something worth seeing. For those of you that are in the chat, we are halfway through our gold medal picks, and we're going to read off the selections right now. I think I only see Jesse's in the chat. If you have favorite Ahsoka Tano moments, please go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll get to Jesse's in just a moment here, but yep, that's a little tease for you. But right now, we're going over to Randy's gold medal Ahsoka moment.
This was really hard for me to figure this one out, just because there were quite a few. Like, obviously, I'm not going to go with her introduction to the Mandalorian on this one. Part of me wanted to, but I'm actually, and I'll preface why I did this. I'm going to go with Ahsoka versus Vader on Rebels. Part of it is I just binged the entire series with my wife, so I got to experience it anew all over again through her eyes, watching her experience it. So it really kind of brought back a lot of that nostalgia for me the first time I watched it. But the idea of understanding the dynamics between Anakin and Ahsoka and just seeing the pained expression of how she felt like she failed him and that she let him become what he did, because of her walking away. But even though we all know that's not the case, and eventually watching her overcome that and realizing it's not her fault that she has to do what she has to do, just the interactions between the two. And the dueling was done fairly well since we know that season 7 of Clone Wars obviously came after. But this was definitely one of those duels that I thought was done really well for animation at the time without using mocap. But it's just the power of it all, and just the idea, at the time thinking you've lost Ahsoka, but obviously Filoni being the genius that he is, leaving those little hints and tidbits that she could return. And then obviously, as we saw later in the series, what happened. But it was one of those moments that it just resonates so well with me, especially getting to see it again, like the first time through someone else's eyes.
I love watching moments through somebody else's lens, because they bring a whole new level of awe and excitement. Or if you're my significant other, maybe you just kind of put up with some of the stuff that I want to watch just to say that you watched, and then we move on to something else. But that's okay. At least she watched it. But I think you and I are on a pretty similar wavelength tonight, Randy, because that's actually my gold medal as well. March 30th, 2016, Twilight of the Apprentice, parts 1 and 2. The duel takes place in part number 2, and it is rated 9.8 out of 10 on IMDb fan ratings. It is probably one of the highest, if not the highest rated piece of Star Wars animated material that you will find on a database like IMDb. I'm trying to go through the Clone Wars and see what her episode when she walked away from the Order was, but I want to say it was like a 9.6. So this is one of the highest rated pieces of material, and rightfully so, for the emotional impact, for the dueling, for the stuff that she puts herself through. And yes, I was right. It was 9.6, the wrong Jedi. So the Twilight of the Apprentice is probably like one of the highest, if not the highest rated, that you're going to find in animation. And the fact that she actually gets a piece of his mask, and she gets to see the man beneath, and he is so far gone that I think even her uttering the word Anakin felt wrong to her in that moment. Like, it was a desperate attempt to reach him, but there was nothing to reach. And I love the line where she says that she's going to avenge his death, and Vader says, "Revenge is not the Jedi way," and she says, "I am no Jedi." I think that is such a huge thing for her to verbally express. She's been a rebel, she's been a Jedi, she's been a rogue, whatever you want to call her, but for her to say in that moment that she is not a Jedi is huge for her character, for her depth, and for what she represents in that moment fighting Vader. And we were talking about our podium of Ahsoka Tano moments. I'll admit, Rebels probably isn't my favorite show, but that is one of my favorite moments. I love the Clone Wars, but my gold medal is a moment that took place in Rebels. It was too good to not put at the top of the podium for me. So I'm done
I wanted
monologue.
that one on my list. Like, I had to basically choose between that and the Maul one. I thought the Maul one had story significance too.
Mm-hmm.
It had technical significance. The Vader Ahsoka moment, though, is it did it first. It did, right? And that's where that whole idea came from.
Technically, yeah. Yep. All right, let's go to Jesse's picks. And I think his is still the only ones that were actually bronze, silver, gold. Chosen Night Wolf, I think that's George, said that the Ahsoka Maul duel was epic. So that was another great piece of content. My bronze medal was actually the Trandoshan hunting episode as well. All right. Silver medal is from TOJ, her training episode, Tales of the Jedi. Okay, it took me a second to remember what that was. And gold medal is the end of season 2 when she fights Vader. I've only been through Tales of the Jedi once, but the depth that they provide for characters like Dooku and Ahsoka is so fun to watch because of the added context that we get. correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are some moves that she learns in her training episode of Tales of the Jedi that she ends up incorporating when she fights the clones during Order 66. Do I remember that correctly?
Been a while since
Yeah.
I watched it, but I think you're right.
I
Yeah.
think
Would have to go back and analyze.
I think I've
They
seen
do
like
it
some
after these
parallels
sudden episodes.
because in one of those training episodes, she's surrounded by clone troopers and they're firing training shots at her. Those training shots that they're firing at her then transition into the real shots when she's being circled for Order 66. So that is another layer that you only learn in retrospect when you're watching Tales of the Jedi. So that's a cool tidbit there, Jesse. I appreciate that. It's Anakin's training that prepared her for Order 66. That's pretty cool. Okay, if y'all have any other Ahsoka moments in the chat, please be sure to send them our way. But we're getting ready to preview the actual live-action Ahsoka series, and we'll probably end up having actual episodic reviews periodically here on the channel. And then we've got our own separate channel, the Legacy of Star Wars, and you'll find contributors posting stuff over there as well. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, and there will be a review and reaction episode over on that channel. So be a part of that, and don't miss out on what we're going to talk about when we actually have the episodes to talk about. But from what we're seeing, this is going to be an extension of Rebels. There's going to be an incorporation, obviously, of Chopper, of Hera, of Sabine. There's a hologram of Ezra. Thrawn is the main antagonist. There's a lot of pieces of Rebels that are going to continue. And I'm just going to open this up to anybody. I'm not going to go clockwise or counterclockwise or what have you. But do you feel like it was the right decision to make the Ahsoka series an extension of Rebels, or should she have gone on her own adventure and made new friends, new allies along the way?
I think we seen how the new ally thing played out, and they were the most ripped apart episodes in the final season of Clone Wars. Not to say that she can't make new allies, and not to say that she doesn't make new allies. Dave Filoni's very particular about where he takes something and what he does with it. So I'm expecting a few surprises. And structurally, all I'll say is I believe the season's split in two.
Well, that would kind of make sense considering we're getting two episodes out of the 8. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. We're getting 25% of the series on opening night. So that's a lot of content. But it's definitely something exciting for me because I've never had something published on my birthday or within a day of my birthday. I'm kind of mad that they moved it up, but I think part of it has to do with spoilers. I think there's a lot of spoilers that are out there right now. And if they can jump the gun on it, even by 12, 16 hours, I think that's probably part of why they chose to move it up to the 22nd. But if I find a poster that's got the 23rd listed on it, I'm probably going to snatch that sucker up because most of the time everybody's stressing about going back to school and stuff like that. Nobody wants to celebrate birthdays on August the 23rd. Everybody's back at school. Everybody's complaining about how hot it is. Everybody's, teaching. I've got a lot of teacher friends. I got a lot of professor friends. I got a lot of student friends. Nobody cares about birthdays during this particular week. So it's nice that there's something for people to actually care about this week.
Can I, sorry. I know you were,
No, go ahead.
I just got lost there for a second. I think it's Tommy's go.
Okay.
I guess. Blame the sickness. Apologies, guys.
Okay. Okay.
Well, Tommy, Randy, I'll throw it to either one of y'all or in sequence, however y'all want to do this. There's a very very good chance that we get to see planets and creatures in Star Wars live action that we've never gotten to see before. How does it make you feel that there are elements from books and even elements from legends that could make their way into this series? Not spoiling anything, not saying I know anything, but just the prospect of more legends crossovers. How does that make you feel?
If we're considering getting, this isn't quite what you just asked, but if we're considering getting things in live action for the first time, I think based on what we've seen, it's just about guaranteed. It is guaranteed. We're getting Lothal, which I think people have mixed feelings about. I think some aren't a huge fan of it. I think some are over the moon about it. As far as this whole show being like a continuation of Rebels, I love the Rebels. I stand on the rock that I think Rebels tells a more cohesive story than the Clone Wars does. But I also love the Clone Wars. I love them for two different things. Rebels tells a neater story, and yet I'm a little uneasy about this being a continuation of Rebels. The circumstances that were in Rebels are no longer the same circumstances in Ahsoka. We're basically in a whole different universe at this point, considering the narrative and the powers that be and what have you. And yet they have some loose ends to wrap up, so they're going to aim to do that, with the crew that they have alongside them. I just really hope that going about that, we don't see them taking any liberties with the Rebels characters that would have been better left not done, not taken. I really hope that we get to see these characters be these characters with the understanding that we are far removed from the Rebels series as is. You guys think that's an unrealistic ask?
I don't think it's unrealistic, but I also think that there are times where creative liberties are taken for the sake of expanding the character or expanding the story or making them a little bit more accessible in the transition to live action. So I guess my train of thought would be, let's keep those expectations tempered so that when and if something does take place that feels like an aberration, we don't blow it out of proportion, I guess. Because I think that's something that the internet does quite a lot, is the slightest deviation, the slightest aberration, and the character's fucking ruined. And that's just not the case. So I guess that would be the only caution I would give. But Talking Star Wars has been very patiently waiting for this question, and I appreciate that they reiterated it in the chat. Randy, I'll throw it to you first because we haven't heard from you recently. Wonder what they're going to do now that Ray Stevenson has passed. Do they kill off Balon or send him away, like to the Outer Rim or something? How do you feel Lucasfilm can or should handle that situation with Ray Stevenson?
Well, it's too late to do anything now for the first season. It's been in the books.
Is your name Randy?
I didn't hear you say Randy at all.
You just jumped right in, but it's all good.
No, I hear you though, but I'm giving you shit. But I hear you because like it's very much a Carrie Fisher situation. It's like, oh, this person's gone, but we might have had more to do with them. So I'm not sure where they take it or what they do with it. Randy, any thoughts?
I'm sure they'll figure out a way to honor the character and honor the actor's memory well. I feel like with something like this, the thing is, we don't even know what happens during the season anyway. So for all we know, the character could end up something could happen to the character by the end of this season. If not, I'm pretty sure they'll figure out something. They could probably, like you said, do something like we did with Carrie Fisher, to at least send the character out in a way that would be befitting of the actor and how the character is being portrayed. They've always been pretty good about doing things like that, trying to honor actors as best they can in the medium. As far as getting stuff in Legends and new characters that I'd love to see in live action, it's pretty exciting to think about. It's one of those things where when you first read a book or you play a video game or something that's just considered legends and not canon, you always wonder, hey, will I ever get to see them in canon? Will I ever get to see them in live action? I mean, you could do it the way they do Ahsoka, or they could do it, God forbid, the way they did Cad Bane, that poor guy. But no, I feel like, as I've said before, got to kind of trust the process with Filoni. He definitely knows what he's doing. These are his characters, and he's always treated them with the utmost respect. So I'm confident that even though he has gone on record saying this is essentially Rebels season 5, I feel like doing that, it has an opportunity to fill in some of the gaps that we just don't know about, especially with Ahsoka's past, after leaving the world between worlds and then finding Sabine, and it's like, okay, what happened in between all those years? And I'm hoping we get that. We can at least get an idea of what happened. So I'm pretty excited about it. I just feel like there's a lot they could do here that would really help build the characters we all know and love even more.
It's a fair point. Sean, I'm going to take it back to Ray Stevenson for a second here, because you mentioned at the top of this broadcast that this was originally intended to just be a one season series, and now with how much hype it's got surrounding it, it could go for 2. Do you feel like the way that the show was originally intended to be created, that could be a preclusion to Balon's character? Do you feel like he meets his fate by the end of this season and all of this speculation could be for nothing?
Yeah, I think that's a distinct possibility. I frankly, I don't know if they know what the hell they're doing at this point. There's the strike going on, and I know season 2 was at least an option at one point, but then there was the Filoni movie getting announced, and this series plays a big part into where we're going with that. And so I don't know. I don't know if we're like, will there be another season, or will the next thing we see after this be a movie? Mando 4 went from being a sure thing to now they don't know. So the movie might be next. I will say this though, I remember Ray Stevenson from The Punisher. Obviously, he's in the Thor movies as well. I've enjoyed his body of work, what I've gotten to see from it. I was shocked to hear his passing, because he looked so healthy and full of life at Star Wars Celebration when he was on stage there with Lars Mikkelsen. And this one kind of hit hard. And I will say this though, the biggest nitpick I have is an unwillingness to cast someone else or recast after someone has passed. The absolute wrong decision, in my opinion, is to refuse to put someone else in that role. You're not honoring the person's legacy by not letting someone else play the role. It's supposed to be with the character at the end of the day. And so I think they, like, push comes to shove, they find someone else for the role. That being said, this is Ray Stevenson, so you can't just get anybody for the role. You got to get someone that embodies some of the same qualities he does.
Right. Well, we may have tipped our hand a little bit, but we're going to close this episode by talking about the one particular thing that we are looking forward to or hoping for the most out of this series. And I'm going to go in reverse order from what we've usually done just to mix it up as we close things out. So, Randy, I'm going to throw it to you first. What is the one thing from the live action Ahsoka series that you are looking forward to or hoping for the most?
For me, obviously, the one thing I'm hoping is done right is the treatment of the Rebels characters, considering how much I enjoy the series. That's kind of the biggest thing for me. That obviously I'm hoping beyond hope. Even if it doesn't happen, I'm still going to hold out hope that we get to see Ezra come back, not just in hologram form. And that's for me. That's the biggest thing I'm really kind of hoping for.
All right, Tommy, what about you? The number one thing that you're looking forward to in this new series?
I suspect I'm not the only one who's going to have this, but assuming how far we go into, Ahsoka, it would be nice if we got a little more context shared on her relationship with Luke. It would be nice to see if we saw a conversation in some way between the two. Something about Anakin or Vader, if you prefer. How when he returned, from the dark side, albeit maybe briefly, his role in the end of the Emperor's reign at that point and the destruction of the Death Star, so on and so forth. It would be nice to see that moment. I mean, we've seen it in memes for years. Let's put some canon to it.
I've seen the meme that you're referring to. She basically breaks down and cries when she finds out that Anakin returned. That would be an interesting conversation to have. Do we bring back mocap Luke though? Is that what we're looking at? We're looking at doing a deep fake return.
I have always been team recast, but I am the unpopular opinion. I often feel with that piece.
We'll see what takes place. If you're not hacking your lungs out, can you bring us home, Sean?
I was trying to point to you. Yeah. So.
Oh, you pointed the other direction.
Oh, right. You'd be the.
I'd be that way.
Don't flip us off, man.
So, Tommy kind of stole my answer. I think that she deserves some peace of mind for Anakin. She needs that, whether it comes from Luke, whether it comes from Anakin, or whether it comes from both. This person deserves that. She's earned that right to be free of this burden she's kind of put on herself. And I don't know if she gets it, but I hope it happens. I think there's definitely pathway to have Hayden appear as a ghost. Don't know if it happens. There's a pathway to see we pick up in Book of Boba Fett and they're already obviously talking. Well, what happened before that? But my real answer, it's one word: Thrawn.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on that one word, and I'm going to expand on it just a little bit more because that is also my answer. Been such a big fan of his character since the Legends. One of my favorite Star Wars books of all time is Outbound Flight, and it's one of our kind of a prequel introduction to Thrawn before he's a Grand Admiral, before he's part of the Empire. He's still part of the Chiss Ascendancy, and that is something that I might be interested in seeing. I might be interested in seeing this rebuilding of the Empire into what could essentially become the First Order. They are way out beyond the Outer Rim, so there could be the capacity to see parts of the unknown regions that we've never seen before. And we could end up seeing other members of his species. It may not be just Thrawn that we end up seeing. And so I think the potential here, yes, it's going to be very much in the vein of Rebels, but I also feel like it's very much got the potential to have a bit of a clean slate where you can see new adventures and new planets and new characters and experience things from the books and from the games and from whatever else that we've never gotten to experience before. I'm trying really, really hard to hold on to low expectations. I don't want to like say, oh, this show is going to suck if it doesn't show me the Chiss fleet. Like, it'd be really cool if we saw it. But even if it is just Thrawn, getting to see his character brought to life is something that I'm sure people have wanted since the 90s. And for Lars Mikkelsen to get to bring the character he voiced onto the live action screen is really, really cool. And it'd be a really cool way to bring his character full circle. So Thrawn is definitely that wild card piece that I'm looking forward to the most. Obviously, we know that Ahsoka is going to get more character depth. Obviously, we know that there's going to be some Ezra related content just from what we've seen in the trailers and such. But Thrawn is definitely something that I'm really looking forward to seeing in this show as well.
I think if I had like one warning to throw out there for all Star Wars fans, it would be to keep your expectations in check. I was talking to Tommy this morning where I said, I'm getting a little mad at myself because I've started to buy into the hype of like from actual critics that aren't Star Wars content creators really loving the first 2 episodes. That to me was a surprise because that hasn't happened in a little while. And, it got my hopes up a bit. But in terms of like on-screen presence, I just think for any characters that aren't really Ahsoka, you should keep expectations in check. Obviously, they'll be there, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the show is about her. And regardless of how you look at it, whether it's Dave Filoni's movie or Mando Season 4 or Ahsoka Season 2, this show is a table setter. No matter how you look at it, it's a table setter. So once it comes and goes, don't just be like, oh, well, this is all we got. It's just the beginning to what they're doing next.
Well, we're going to enjoy it while it lasts. First 2 episodes, August 22nd, and then there will be a total of 8 that run through October, I believe. I think it's October 3rd, I want to say.
October. The Tuesdays at 9 is sticking.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm pretty sure they're keeping it Tuesdays at 9, so the finale will be Tuesday, October the 3rd, 9 Eastern, for those of you that were asking. 8 Central, 7 Mountain, 6 Pacific will be this new debut slot on Disney+. Still not sure how that's going to work, but I'm curious to see how it goes, and looking forward to the upcoming reviews that are going to be happening here on this channel and over on the Legacy of Star Wars. One final reminder to hit that subscribe button and click like on this video if you already haven't, so that you can get stuff put in your algorithm for future reviews of this show. But that's pretty much it for our Ahsoka preview and our podium of Ahsoka moments. It's been fun getting to take this trip down memory lane, talking about the Clone Wars movie and Rebels and all the stuff leading up to it. Randy, thanks so much for being a part of the show tonight. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Glad to be here.
Tommy, it's been a while, but always great to see you. Thanks for being a part of this. And y'all are both part of Legacy of Star Wars, are you not?
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be plenty of content from these two as well. Tommy, where else are you doing anything outside of Legacy of Star Wars?
Not so much right now. I'm around Fandom Empire whenever we got something going on as available.
Awesome. Sometimes I have a hard time keeping up with who is where because I barely remember to hop on for my own Flix Busters episodes. So if that doesn't tell you the state of my schedule, I don't know what does. But Sean, I know things have been a little crazy up north by you, but I'm glad you were able to hop on and be a part of tonight, and I'm looking forward to what's next.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I honestly don't think I've had this much excitement for I was gonna say Star Wars movie, a Star Wars media release. Probably since we were all getting ready to go see The Last Jedi. That's probably where my excitement level is at this for tomorrow night. Because
And then it just all goes downhill from there.
regardless of how it goes, think about this: we're all going to have a chance to sit down with our significant others and watch brand new Star Wars content. And I will tell you this: I'll leave you with this thought. There is a surprise people aren't expecting.
Oh man, I was surprised by WandaVision. I don't know if I can be surprised by this show, but
I'm not talking something deep either. It's minor, but I think Star Wars fans will appreciate it.
Interesting. Well, we're going to leave you all with that little teaser, and hopefully we'll get to talk about it in the coming weeks. But that is going to do it for this Ahsoka introspective episode of Flix Busters. For Randy and Tommy and Sean, I'm Zach, thanking you for tuning in, and we will see you next time right here on the next episode of Flix Busters.